people just want to be heard, right? They want to feel like they're accepted, that they have a voice. Am I giving enough? Right? When people are at a certain level of wealth and then you start to feel like, I know I have a responsibility and an opportunity, but I want to be doing right by myself and others. So am I giving enough?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fearful Giants, the podcast that's getting loud about something most leaders never talk about out loud, their fear. I'm Clay Stelzer, executive coach and founder of the coaching company 1560. And every week I sit down with a founder, a CEO, or an executive leader to talk about the stuff they're not talking about on LinkedIn. So today I'm so excited. Julie Hoffmann is with me. She's the founder and CEO of JH Philanthropy, a firm dedicated to empowering families to make meaningful connections and impact through philanthropy. So with over 2 decades of experience in the nonprofit and philanthropic sectors, Julie's become a trusted advisor to high capacity and generous families, helping them navigate the complexities of charitable giving and maximize their philanthropic potential. Hi, Julie.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm honored to be here and a little terrified when you asked me that we're going to talk about fears. So bring it on.
Well, great. You're terrified. Even better. I'm terrified too. We can be just terrified together.
It's perfect. Perfect. That's where we do our best work.
It is where we do our best work. And that's why I started this podcast. Because listen, we're both CEOs, we're both founders. And here's a news story, everyone that's not a CEO or founder. Fear is everywhere. And it does not matter what title you have. Fear is part of the human experience. And that's what we're here to talk about. So I invite all of your fear, and I will share all of mine. Okay, I want to jump right into this stuff. So you're in a very unique industry. I've never met someone that does what you do. And I'm calling it the business of giving. I don't know if you call it that, but that's kind of how I conceptualize it in my mind. And you've dedicated, half your life to being in this sector? When I was thinking about our conversation, I was thinking, growing up, everyone either wants to be a marine biologist or a basketball player. I either want to play with dolphins or be a superstar. But then there's also what if I could spend my life helping make meaningful impact in the world? And that's, I think, what you get to do.
Absolutely.
Which is so cool. I'm curious again, you've spent so much time doing this. What led you to jump into this line of work? It seems kind of obvious, but I don't know anyone else that's done it. So how did you get into this at such a young age?
Well, first of all, Clay, thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm honored to be a part of this conversation. I have gone through a lot of different iterations, right, of understanding what giving back means and what it means to be of service to others. I grew up in Arizona, went to Vanderbilt University, and my sophomore year of college, I participated in Alternative Spring Break. And Alternative Spring Break is it's an alternative to spring break where you're often doing service. And in many cases, you apply to travel somewhere else. You're working with other students and a professor. I had the incredible opportunity to partner with my women's studies professor and volunteer in Nashville, very close to the Vander bubble, as we would say at that time. And in that experience, there were about 7 of us, and we spent a week working with and really getting to know women who had been in and out of prison, really because of prostitution and drug trafficking charges. And we worked with them to actually build a recovery home that they would be living in. And that experience just rocked my world. I'd grown up in a service-oriented family, but I think in some ways it was almost like a check the box, this is what you do. And in that experience, there in Nashville, 2 miles from this kind of elite private school, I understood that I could be these women, they could be me. We just grew up in different homes. And for me, education was not a question. It was, where are you going to college, not are you going to college? And that's when I decided I was going to go into the Peace Corps. I was going to really dedicate my life to service. I will say that evolution, at that time, it was I'm going to be a part of breaking barriers. And it was the naivete in a sense of everybody deserves the same access. through all of this work, I've learned a lot more about the realities, about the barriers that so many people face based off of gender, race, ethnicity, background, so many things that are both overt and covert. And I have really dedicated my life to helping to break down those barriers.
Amazing. So while you had an opportunity to go jet skiing and pounding beers, you thought it might be a little bit more important to go help someone.
So I will say, I will caveat. So I did alternative spring break my sophomore and junior year. By
Okay.
senior year, my friends were like, "That's enough. You're coming with us to Florida." So I did still have fun in Florida.
Okay,
That's the
okay, okay.
senior year spring break.
Well, I love it. I'm inspired by you, that story. And listen, I don't do what you do, but I get to spend my days and my time helping others really show up in life, creating what they want. And I mean, I go to bed well at night. It feels fun to see the impact I can create. And I imagine the scale of which you're creating impact must be just really rewarding. So I want to talk about that impact. I want to talk about the dynamics that you have to play in, create that impact. And I was thinking about the clients that you deal with, which are high wealth families and mostly families, right? Family.
Yes, individuals, families, companies, but usually privately or family held companies.
Yeah. So, this podcast is about fear. We've already covered
Yeah.
that. I'm curious, fear shows up everywhere. It's part of our experience. Most
Mhm.
people aren't necessarily in touch or aware of how fear is impacting themselves and their lives. Some of us are. But I'm really curious about how fear shows up with your clients in this space of considering how they want to create impact. So I'm actually imagining that most people that have the means to give back are hiring you because they're fearful of making the wrong decision. I don't know if that's true or not, but how does fear show up with your clients as they're sort of, there's any number of organizations they could support, any number of causes they could get behind. How does fear show up in their minds or in their experience of giving?
And so it's a great question. And you know this given your work. I mean, the fear is rarely named outright,
Yeah.
right? But it's always in the room. It's like behind what is not being said. While people come to us, and when you think about philanthropy advising and the ultimate output is helping people to identify where and how much to give. The work before that is really about engaging family and doing the individual deep work to understand what do you care most about? What's the stake you want to put in the ground to support your community, to live your legacy out loud? And when you talk about that, a lot of fears can come up. I would say before we even get to like giving to the wrong organization, that's almost the easiest to handle. The bigger challenges are I should be doing more. I get the question often like, am I giving enough? Right? When people are at a certain level of wealth and then you start to feel like I know I have a responsibility and an opportunity, but I want to like be doing right by myself and others. So am I giving enough is a question and I can't answer that for them, right? It's about really understanding it's not just what's on the balance sheet, but it's about what you want to give out to the community. And the other is about the impact of the wealth on future generations. We work with folks who are both first generation wealth creators. So they have not grown up in wealth and now they have achieved significant success, financial success. And now what is this going to mean for my kids, my grandkids? How do I make sure that they don't just grow up too entitled? Right? That's a big question we hear. And then the other is about when we are talking about multiple generations and thinking about are they going to be prepared to handle this wealth for people who have been in multi-generational wealth? We work with a lot of families in that sense where it's part of this great wealth transfer and we're transferring from generations 3, 4, and 5. So that is more about are they going to be prepared to carry on this work?
Interesting. And what if their kids don't care about the same things that their parents care about?
A great question. So, when somebody is starting in their philanthropy or inviting their kids to be a part of it, help them to define what is their ultimate goal in this work. Is it about an invitation to engage? Is it a directive to engage? What are the motivations in creating this space? A lot of our work and what I have found to be one of my greatest joys in this work beyond the community impact is really helping individuals come together with their families. One, understand what really motivates them. begin to articulate that not just for themselves, which is the first barrier very often, but then the second is be able to share that with their family. Particularly, I mean, family dynamics are tough, can be. And so how do we all come together and understand that everyone's why is deeply personal and we all have different things that we care about, how we want to be heard and perceived in family and in community, and helping to align on what we call an ultimate purpose. It's really like the internal mission statement for doing this work together. We say like your external, your mission statement on the website, if you choose to have one, could be, I want to save the whales. But the internal mission statement, it could be about helping to prepare generations to come for handling this wealth, or
Yeah.
it could be about clean water. It could be a variety of different things, but we need to articulate it. We have a family who says their founder, who was 2 generations ago, created this foundation because he wanted a space for the family to come together outside of weddings and funerals. And now this family is on generations 3, 4, and 5. There are 3 branches. We have 20 board members. We'll be at 30 some odd in the next couple of years. And this family can come together and have these intellectual and tough conversations. And we just redesigned governance to talk about really the rules of engagement and how do we have these conversations. But that takes work.
Yeah, I imagine it does. So, I spend my life helping usually business leaders find, I love what you said, their ultimate purpose.
Yes,
You're doing this with families. Families can be, even more difficult than business leaders because you've
yes,
got history. There's a
absolutely.
So we're in the same line of business in a different
Exactly.
business. And what do you think is most helpful? And studying this for as long as I've studied and as long as you've studied this, I really do think it all disagreements and misalignment all does come down to fear. The reason we react or blame someone for their point of view or totally check out, like I'm just going to shut up and bite my tongue. If I can't have what I want, I'm going to take my ball and go home. There's all these behaviors, and usually that all stems from feeling threatened in some way.
Right.
Like I don't
Right.
have control, and if I don't have control, then fine, or whatever it might be. So that's difficult to manage, especially in a family dynamic. So are there any core philosophies or any like what do you think about how do I get 2 people in a family that are deeply passionate, they care about giving, and they're either on different sides of the aisle politically or they see the world very differently or especially now in this day and age. I imagine that's got to be one of the hardest parts of your job. How do I support them to find this ultimate purpose you're talking about?
You know, I will note that, yes, in the past couple of years, these conversations have gotten much more challenging. And families who said before, oh, we're fine, we get along. Now we're coming back and say, okay, now we understand the need for governance. And governance can sound bureaucratic, but it's actually really about how do we make decisions? How do we engage with one another? And what are the rules of engagement? So you asked really like, what are some of the core methodologies? The one thing I always say is clarity is kindness. And so often, think about on a job. You have your job description. In an ideal workplace, you know what it means to be successful in your role. You know, you get a performance review. You know what is expected of you to move to the next level. There are embedded conversations you're in or you're out, right? You're growing, you're getting feedback. When you're in families, that rarely happens. So there's a mindset shift of helping families to understand, okay, we think about the Venn diagram of here are family dynamics, there's maybe a family business, and here's family foundation. And your values are going to show up in all of these different areas, but in different ways. So the first is aligning on our values. What are the values that each of us hold and where do we come together on that? And recognizing that we don't have to be the same, but there is beauty in us being different and learning from one another.
Uh-huh.
2 is identifying that ultimate purpose, because if we can all agree why we are in this together and we hold that sacred, then that helps us to come back to when we're having the tough conversations and the tough decisions, like, is this honoring our ultimate purpose? And then 3, it is being really clear, particularly as you asked before, what if the kids don't want to be involved? Or what if my sibling doesn't want to be involved? One, creating opportunities for people to opt out if that is not of interest. And for those that do want to be involved, it needs to be very clear. what is expected of them, how do they gain a seat at the table if that's what is desired, and what is the knowledge that is expected of you, how do you show up in this. And so it causes, and oftentimes we're talking to people who are very successful business leaders also, so it's just saying,
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, that's right, I do this in my business too. So it's helping them to shift that conversation. And you mentioned something about like everything is drawn from fear, it's rooted in fear. I've learned in this work that so often in families, no matter how old we are, people just want to be heard, right? They want to feel like they're accepted, that they have a voice. Oh, we have a family with a 94, now 7-year-old patriarch, 3 daughters who are in their 60s and have done incredibly well. Then they have kids, they have kids. The grandfather, G1, is really thinking about, how do I set this up for G3? And I've never even talked to them about my wealth. And G2 is like, hey, I still want a seat at the table. I need to know that I'm seen as successful and worthy in your eyes before I can, and I need to show up as understand my role as a leader in the family. And then I can show up for my kids as a leader. It's layered.
I think you are so right. I love that you brought that up. People just want to be heard. And in my experience, once people are heard, the topic itself or the tension itself can, even if nothing's changed, just simply being heard can diffuse the entire situation. My wife and I practice this. In fact, we did it last night. If ever we feel misaligned or one of us is upset, we'll ask each other to do some reflective listening.
Mm.
It's not changing anything, but it's, hey, I really want you to know what's going on over here on planet Clay. Can you just listen and repeat back just so I know that I'm understood? And that practice we hold as sacred, and it helps us move through life without holding on. And then, if you hold on to things and you're not understood, then it turns to resentment, then it turns to something else and it grows and it gets ugly.
You're so right. That is something I'm working on in my own personal life, right? It's like they
Yeah,
say, do as I say, not as I do. And I
sure.
have to think about that because I can get in and facilitate with families and have these tough conversations. And I don't know about you, but often when we're in this coaching space, like you expend a lot of emotional intelligence and you're showing up with and for others. So
Yeah.
then you come home and you are depleted. And so I have to work really hard, and I'm working on my own self right now about whether, I don't know if we call it boundaries or what, or just where am I focusing my energy so that I can still show up in that way for my family too.
Yeah.
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 So that's not easy.
It's not easy. What's the expression about the cobbler's children or something?
Exactly.
Or, yeah, I'm horrible at expressions. I always like end up
I do
merging 3 or
too.
4 of them, and it makes no sense at all what I'm saying. Something about a cobbler and their
The
kids,
cobblers
something.
have no shoes,
There you
something
go.
like
Right.
that. Yeah,
Got it.
exactly.
Awesome. I love hearing you talk about this stuff and like
It's
the
so,
core fundamental. Yeah, because it's like, I don't know, I hang out with a bunch of coaches. And when I mean coaches, I mean like interpersonal executive type coaches. When I think of you, I've known you for what, about a year and a half or so. Like I've thought of you as this brilliant person that helps people invest. Not
mm,
invest, to
mm-hmm.
donate or to create
Right.
impact. But that's not what you do. You're just a brilliant coach.
I like the just up, but yes, no, that is exactly right. It is when people ask about how do you get into this type of work, like there are legal things that we need to know about, right? About the tax code and things, but we're always saying, I'm not a wealth advisor, I'm not your estate planning attorney, I'm not your accountant. We are like that third or fourth leg of the stool to help people to think about their social impact and how they want that to show up
Yeah.
in their life or family.
That's so cool. I'd love to be a fly on the wall and watch you do your thing in these
You can't.
situations.
We have it's very confidential, but
Well, but,
exactly.
like, maybe you could hire me to be, like, the coffee boy or something. Like, I could
There
bring
you go.
refreshments to everyone when they're having heated debates, and then I could kinda watch you do your thing. That would be really cool. I'm great at serving coffee too, so just go
I
ahead and
bet,
think
I
about
bet, I bet you
okay.
are.
You said a word earlier that I wanna talk about. I was planning on talking with you about this, legacy. I think legacy is a fascinating idea. I deal with this with my clients. I have some wealthy clients that are CEOs and founders, and they're thinking about, well, what's the legacy I'm going to leave behind? And I have seen people engage in that question from a deeply unhealthy mindset and a deeply healthy mindset. I think there are very different ways to navigate that idea. I'm curious before I lead you into my view of healthy and unhealthy. I'm just curious what's the significance of legacy when you're doing the work that you're doing with the people you're doing it with?
Thank you for asking that, and I really would like to hear your perspective on that, the healthy and unhealthy. So, I will say that legacy is a loaded word. right? There are some people when we talk about legacy and people are like, "Oh, I don't care about that. I don't." Yeah. And that's like the fear, right? That's them feeling like I don't want to appear too self-important that I think that that's and I'm like, "Look, legacy doesn't have to be for anybody else except for yourself. It's about what's the impact you want to leave on the world. Like, what do you when you go to bed at night and you put your head on the pillow, what are you like, that was a good day? What are the connections that you made? How do you want to show up? And it is about being remembered. And so I think that things have shifted with generations. I think older generations, there was a sense of like permanence, right? I'm going to leave my mark on the world.
Like, literally, some people like, "I want my name on a library."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, with generations, relationships with wealth is complicated. As we just did a book club within our company and a virtual book club about a book called Decolonizing Wealth. So we have a lot of families that are wrestling with the recognition of how this wealth was created, also. And so younger generations that are coming in, we call it the rising generations, have different relationships with this. And some eschew they just like, I don't want to be associated with this name. I don't want to be involved. And so legacy, depending on where you sit, could be about influence. It could be about relevance. I want people to think about it more in terms of philanthropy as living your values out loud. When Clay's not in the room, and so it's like, oh, I met Clay. What do you hope that somebody would say about you? Right? Like an authentic dude, like he can see you, right? He understands. He's going to ask you tough questions that are going to make you really think. And he showed up for his family. I don't know you that well, but I know I've spent like, a good amount of time with you, and like that's my initial response. And like hopefully you'd be like, that feels pretty cool, right? So to me, that's what we think about legacy. Now, we have an opportunity to take it a step further because the other part of my work, especially today, when we have such a polarized political climate, we're sitting here in Chicago and there's a lot happening in our communities. So we start with the internal work about what do you care most about, and then it's about, okay, you have a responsibility also. If you have a foundation, the tax structure is such that the money you've received a tax credit, right? So this is a favorable opportunity for you to have this entity. And now this money is actually both partially yours and partially the public's in a sense. There are a lot of different ways to think about it. And so we cannot wait to move that work forward in the communities that we care about. So it's a double-edged sword. If somebody's like, I don't want to talk about legacy, you're like, okay, like we're going to talk about other things, but it really is about what's the impact you want to have, whether it's on the world, your community, or yourself.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about healthy and unhealthy, creating impact in the world, I think can be deeply healthy. And,
Can also
um,
be deeply destructive.
well, sure, it can be that as well. When I talk about unhealthy legacy, I think about when people create identity around who am I if I have my name on a library?
Hmm.
What is
Hmm.
that? When I overly identify, when I um, create some identity around my impact, I think it can be a real trap that can introduce a whole lot of suffering because if I don't have my name on that library, then who am I? And it can be a bit of a rat race, and maybe I need a bigger library to have my name on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have a lot of people think, like, when I'm gone, I want people like it is this. I'm still, and a lot of business owners, very successful CEOs, it's if I just am
Yeah.
successful enough, then I will be worthy. And
But the goalposts keep moving.
yeah,
It doesn't
and
stop.
it's really worthy of love, like, if you really
Right.
like,
I know.
then I will be seen as enough, then I will be worthy of love, and I think when people chase that in all aspects around legacy or anything else, it's usually a recipe for all kinds of suffering, in my experience. So I'd be real curious, some people, I imagine, would enter into a conversation with you around legacy from what I would call from a place of love, like, "Yeah, I just really I have these values that you talked about, I wanna create impact that feels meaningful to me, and I just feel fortunate enough that I can create that impact. It feels deeply healthy to me. Or, hey, I really want to create impact because that would mean I'm successful,
Hmm.
or that would mean et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious. I'm guessing this isn't anything new to you, but I imagine you have clients that span that spectrum of mindset. Have you thought about that
Absolutely.
much?
Absolutely. I mean, and really, when you think about like how philanthropy came to be, particularly in the Gilded Age, it really was about kind of moving up, right? Having your name being a part of these social circles. Look, philanthropy isn't and is not going to be, I think, sustainable if it's all altruistic, right? So there are some people that come into it, and I think they get almost. It's like, well, I'm not supposed to get anything out of this, and I'm just gonna be giving of myself, and that's what it's supposed to be. The reality is that's you're not gonna keep doing it if you're literally just pouring out and not getting anything in return.
Well, hold on a minute. I want to, can I
Yeah,
ask a counterpoint?
please.
But when I have my wits about me and I'm not driven by fear of trying to be someone, because trust me, I can be in that place too. But the getting is seeing the impact I've created and feeling the impact I created. So I agree with you. No one's going to have motivation to do anything in the world if they're not receiving something. But I think we can receive different things from the same impact.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm saying it's important to, like, actually be okay with that, to recognize what are you looking to gain, learn, be a part of in your philanthropy, because that can help. Because I am not coming from a place of judgment. Like, my job is not to say you're doing it right or wrong. Now, I have my own values focus, and we, attract a certain type of client and are very, dogmatic of being nonprofit centered in our work. And I need to know who you are and what drives you. And if you can be authentic and honest with yourself and with me, then I can figure out how to best activate you in the world and activate your philanthropy, right? If you want to be this anonymous systems change donor, there are a lot of tools for us to move into that. If you want to be, as one of my clients said, I would like to be on Time's 100 most influential or interesting people list. And I'm like, great, we can work with that too. And so to me, I don't come at a place of judgment for that. I'm like, I understand and recognize and applaud your self awareness. And then I can actually help us to move forward in that way. And for that person who wanted to be super influential, that's maybe where we started in our philanthropy. And
Mhm.
now we're on a very different path in terms of that of like, okay, actually I started here and I realized it was actually all about me. And I've learned so much now about how I want to show up in community, how I can actually have significant impact and not come in as, frankly, oftentimes like the white savior who's been done so well in one aspect of business or my life and have a new solution for the rest of the community. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really interesting.
I've got one more question on this, and I'm just deeply curious.
Yeah.
If someone gets on the top 100 most influential, whatever magazine, whatever publication, you've seen that happen. You've probably helped
Hmm.
people like achieve
Hmm.
those things. What tangible difference does that make in their lives?
Oh, it's a good question. What tangible difference? I think that the people that you and I work with very often, you're driven by something, right? You're driven by a recognition. I think that even entrepreneurs, I have to think about this my own self. Like, why am I doing this? And is it for recognition or is it for impact? Is it for myself? Is it for my family? Right?
Yeah.
We are complex human beings. Uh, so I think I would be lying if I didn't say, like, for those people, they're like, "Okay, I've arrived," as we said, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm
Yeah.
somebody," because 'cause we're always trying to prove ourselves to someone very often, and the healthiest way is to really become most satisfied with our own self. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that philanthropy and the act of being in service and doing this both individually and with your family can help people to get there, right? Because it helps you to understand on the world, the complexities of the world. It helps you to understand your neighbors and get more proximate to the challenges that people are facing. And it helps you to realize, like, yeah, like there are other bigger problems around me, and I have a role I can play not just with giving money, but we always say time, talent, treasure, and ties, right? And really helping to broaden that conversation.
Yeah. Well, I just honor that and really appreciate that you're really trying to help people live their values
Hmm.
and create impact that's aligned with those values. And I imagine you have people that have all different sorts of motivations.
Hmm.
And I'm also sensing that, and there's a judgy one that can live within me, probably because secretly I want my name on a library.
We'll get you there, Clay.
Anyway, but I just love that, I don't know. I love that you create that connection, and also I would definitely say an unhealthy philanthropist, like, if they're doing good
Mm,
in the world, who gives a
exactly.
shit? Like,
Exactly. I
good for
agree.
them for using their resources to support something they care about. I think it's
Yep.
amazing. I think it's great.
Hmm.
I wish there was more of that.
It's a great point.
Okay. So, oh, this is fun. I hope you're having fun. I
I am. I love it.
am.
You haven't scared me off yet.
Okay, good. That's good. So you're a CEO and I'm a
Yes.
CEO. And preparing for this interview, I started to think about, like, well, what's my legacy?
Mm,
Like, when I leave, what does legacy mean for me? It's been really a fun exercise for me to think about it. And I'm curious, clearly you're in the space. You started to allude to it earlier. You've got your set of values. Like, what does legacy mean to you in your life as it pertains to you and your own legacy? Like, I don't know. What do
good
you want?
question. So I, a couple years ago, did the Enneagram.
Great. What number are you?
Okay. I'm a 3.
Me too.
See, but there's something there, right? I originally was testing as a 7, which for those that don't know is more of like the outgoing extrovert, like FOMO of everything. And I'm not that. I'm actually, as I've gotten older, I've become much more comfortable with my outgoing introvert self.
Uh-huh.
And, but when I learned about the Enneagram 3, and it really is about, there's like an interest in significance. Right? There's like your little kid, you as a little kid wanted someone to tell you like you're enough just as yourself. And so I am still working through that and understanding that. And I'm getting a lot closer there and recognizing also like my impact. I have an incredible daughter who has a variety of different kind of learning and special needs. And that has really helped to center me
Yeah.
and in the way because it's like, okay, I do all this really important work in the community, and how am I showing up in my own family and really being an advocate and learning with and for her. And so that has really helped to have to change my thoughts about legacy. So, there's legacy as a CEO and there's legacy as a person. And one of my greatest core values is just authenticity. It's authenticity, learning. I think that that's an overused word, but I think you've seen me show up in group settings. Like I'm kind of like what you see is what you get.
And by the way, if you're a 3, good job with authenticity. That's the hardest thing for a 3 to be. I can speak from experience around that. But anyway, keep going.
Well, I mean, I think that I also have learned that, life is too short to be pretending to be anything that you're not. And I've just become so much more comfortable with who I am and what I can bring. And I think that often by sharing your own stories and struggles, you can help you can both connect with others and learn, and teach others. So anyway, I'm stalling because I'm not really sure yet what the legacy
Beautiful. Thank
is
you.
really, but yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring it out. It's, when I think about my greatest joys in my professional life, I thought when I was in the Peace Corps and there on alternative spring break, I thought it was at that point, it was really helping people to tap into like help them be most successful and break down barriers, right? And I thought that even when I started this company, because I had come from the nonprofit space and venture philanthropy space, and I was always fighting for something in the community, I feared that I would miss that. I feared that, I would feel like, what am I fighting for if I'm not like running this nonprofit or teaching people about violence prevention or education access? Like that's what I had really shaped myself around. And now I realize that my true value is still helping people to understand what motivates them and helping to unlock that. And then when I can do that, though, it's about nonprofit centered philanthropy. It's about families coming together to get beyond themselves and move more money into communities and really learning about and being a part of the work that they feel most passionate about. And so for me, like I want people to think about that about me, about that, she helped me to like figure something out and get over myself so I could move, be more generous in my own community. And we went to a community event recently, and was walking home with my daughter, and she said, "I knew that was important for you to be there." I'm gonna tear up, and I said, "Why?" It was. Thank you. What do you mean by that? And she said, "Well, you care about our neighbors and you care about our community, and that's important to you." And I was like, "Oh, thank you for seeing me." Right? To
Yeah.
my
Thank you for
12-year-old who
seeing
you're
me.
like, "I don't know if you ever hear me," right? But thank you for seeing me. And so that to me
Beautiful.
is special.
It's amazing what our daughters and our sons can teach us. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I don't think there's been a better teacher I've had in my life.
Holds a mirror up to you. Mhm.
Sure does. Thank you for that. And I
Mhm.
love, it's like, what a loaded question. Like, I imagine you're thinking, like, gosh, Clay, thanks for asking me like the hardest question in the world. And like, when you die, what do you want to be remembered as? Like, it's not just like a little question.
Right.
And I love that you didn't bullshit me and yourself. Like, I don't actually know. That's still changing and evolving, but I do
It
know
is.
this. I love that. I'm
Yeah.
in the same place with that. I mean, in fact, the more and more I really settle into my own gifts as a coach and whatever else I'm doing in the world, I think the legacy is a reflection of that. Like,
Mhm.
when am I at my best? What are the gifts that I can bring the world from that place? And that's I'm doing a whole lot of thinking about that very thing. Yeah. And so for me, when I start playing in that space, I start thinking, well, who is the guy I need to be fully be the gift I want to be to those around me? And for me, Enneagram 3, I know we're talking about Enneagram. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. Enneagram 3 is we're performers. I learned a long time ago growing up that to feel worthy in the world, I had to be someone or something. I had to earn that worthiness. And so I grew up putting on a song and dance for everyone around me to kind of feel okay in the world, and that comes with all kinds of anxiety and all kinds of other shit that isn't all that fun. But
Absolutely.
for me, the gift in my own legacy comes directly from that, where it's I hope that I can model what it means to tell the truth,
Mm.
to be as authentic as I am. Because that's the very thing that's been the hardest for me to do. And it's the very thing I see is creating the most suffering in so many people's lives. And anyway, so that's sort of what's on
I've
my mind around
so
this.
many questions about that in terms of, like, how you get there, right? How do you know when you're telling the truth, right? When you are like, I think that we are ever evolving creatures, right? And in a healthy marriage, right? Relationship with yourself, with others, and a business, we're always looking and learning. And I always say, like, I don't have to know everything, but I have to know people who do, right? I have to figure out how to find the answer. And that is something I have learned to be really good at. And so, in that, if you're an ever learning and evolving person, then I mean your truth is going to stay maybe constant for you, but the surroundings are going to change. I don't know. I just think I'm stumbling over it because I think it's really complex, and
It is.
I'm really
Well,
excited that you're digging into it.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's not what I'm saying, it's just that I'm saying it. So I
Okay.
my values, like my opinion on something may change, but am I willing to allow myself to be seen
Yes.
in the face of or potential fear of being rejected for whatever that might be?
Mm. Hmm.
And in fact, that's
Speaking
part
your
of why I
truth.
have this podcast.
Yeah.
Like, for years and years and years, I kept myself small because I was fearful of being rejected or not being seen as, great as I wanted to be seen. And that's a huge trap. And I
Yes.
limited the amount of fun in my life. I limited my creative expression, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to stand up and do my best to take care of the scared one that lives within me and still be courageous enough to say the very thing that is true to me, not true in the world, but true to me,
I see.
regardless of what anyone else thinks of it. It's not easy to do, but boy,
Yeah.
it's the more I do that, the more rewarding life is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
I
me
love
on
it.
my soapbox. But so I'm actually curious, and I know that this idea of legacy is still evolving for you and for me. But I am curious.
Well, you're not going to let it go, huh?
No, of course not.
Keep it going. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Well, who's the Julie you need to be to step into this next chapter and yeah, I get it. Like, oh fuck, now I gotta
Just
like
cross
figure
wires.
cross
You
my
saw it.
like I get it. I totally get it. But you agreed to be on this
I know,
podcast and
I
we
know, I'm
could cut
doing the
all
hard
this right
work.
out of the
I'm modeling
podcast.
it. Don't. This is what
But
we do, right?
this
This
is
is how
what we
we
do.
learn.
Exactly. Where's the edge? What's the thing that you need to embrace or let go of to fully allow you to step into this evolving legacy and create the impact that you're
Mm.
wanting to create in the world?
So, when you said that for a while you kept yourself small. And even doing this podcast is like you getting out of that comfort zone and sharing. I can absolutely relate to that. When I started this company, I got a great piece of advice from a mentor and now client who had done a lot of consulting, and, built a number of, was a part of leadership of a couple of the big four leadership consulting firms. And he said, so often when people start a new company, or start something, they think they spend all this time on their website and their business cards and their logo. And then they're like, I'm open for business. Who wants to hire me? And he said, but his guidance to me was like, just get started, right? Just get started, figure out what you're doing, figure out what you're uniquely good at. And then maybe it's whenever you feel ready, then you say, I'm open. Here's what I'm doing. And I'm booked, right? There's a waiting list, right? That was incredible advice for me. And it helped me to not feel like I had to have it all figured out. I did not have to be perfect because I have grown up and felt like I have to be perfect, right? I know, like, I'd get nervous to ask a question in a big group because I might not say it correctly. And so that guidance, as I have now begun to process it, gave me the permission to just get started, to just work with a couple of families. Of my first 3 clients, 2 of the families are still with us, and we've evolved and learned together. Now, I will say, though, that also became a crutch because I was like, okay, I'm just going to be heads down and do good work and people will find me, right? Which is fine, obviously, when you're also a solopreneur in many cases. But once I started growing the team, providing salaries, benefits, and having a workforce that I was also responsible for, it was no longer like, okay, we could just like do good work and hope people will find us. Now I have a P&L that I'm responsible for, and I need to make sure that we are both doing the work that we've set out to do, and I'm continuing to provide for my team. And so I think that edge there, and what I am leaning into a lot more this year, is being comfortable, being more vocal about what I don't know, right? Being comfortable not being perfect and buttoned up, and to the point of the authenticity, being comfortable saying, okay, can you repeat that? I don't understand that. Or tell me more, right? And I have learned, though, a lot of the greatest leaders do that. They lean in to, I don't know a lot about that, and I don't have to. So tell me more. I would like to learn. And so that, I think, has been something that has held me back for a long time. It took me forever to start a newsletter or get out. And I could like hide under the like, well, it's okay. I don't want to put my name out in lights. And I had a good friend actually say, like, you do incredible work in community. You work with a lot of, notable families. You're in the middle of this philanthropy ecosystem. I want to know what you're learning. I want to, like, by keeping it to yourself, you're doing us a disservice. And if you can share and put that out there, then it's going to help the sector and help all of us and that helped me not feel like it was like all about me or I had to be perfect, but that I could actually like learn out loud. So that's an edge I'm working on.
I love it. Learning out loud. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Uh-huh.
So I've got 2 quick questions, and then we're
Okay.
gonna wrap this baby up. One
All right.
question I'm beginning to ask to everyone, it's getting right at the fear piece. And so, what's one truth about yourself that you know deep down that your fear always forgets?
What's one truth about myself?
That
What
you
does
know
that
deep
mean that
down.
your fear always forgets?
For me, it's you're gonna be average, or you are average, or you're
Mm,
but like I have to remind myself about what's true.
right.
And so I don't know if there's any. Yeah, by the way, the reason I'm asking this question, I think there's so much room for leaders like you in the world to expose, hey, listen, we have fear too. And that's why I like to invite people to kind of step in. Like, what's the voice
Oh,
that
totally.
limits you?
It's
If you're, your critic had a microphone, what's the voice that
it's
isn't
she
true?
has no idea what she's doing. Like, who let her in this room? Yeah, it's absolutely
She has
especially
no
as
idea what she's
she
doing.
has no idea what she's doing, right?
Because that's what I was
It's
thinking over here too about you. I'm like,
exactly,
we just
right?
talked for now. She's got no idea what she's talking about.
It's that imposter syndrome. It's like, do I deserve to be here? But this is going again to the question before about like learning to like living out loud. When I was doing one of my first business presentations, I mean, this is, 25 years ago, and I was shaking in my boots. I was so nervous. And my younger sister was a college professor. And so she would like get up and speak to these classes, these classrooms. And I asked her, I said, how do you do it? And she said, "I know more about this than those that I'm speaking with." Right. And that was such an eye opener to me. I've started to be like it. I reference this often because I recent Melody Hobson was recently speaking at an event, and she was saying like, we don't want to be a know it all. You want to be a learn it all. And people that are really good in their work are continuing to learn from others all the time. And you become a subject matter expert. You're going to be deep knowledge in this sector, but you're not going to know everything else. And so I think, but that fear has always been, yeah.
Got it.
What?
And would you be willing to share one thing that's absolutely true about yourself that contradicts that voice?
Oh, I mean,
Uh, about who you actually are.
about who I actually am. I mean, I bring value, and it's been a wild ride. I do think that the entrepreneurship journey, both in the work that I've somehow, been so honored to come into, like I didn't know this was a job or a possibility. It's really all evolved based on, I think, instinct, what I'm drawn to and where I've realized I actually create value. And so that has, and it is, I mean, I'm not going to lie to say like, it's like the external, like the fact that business keeps growing, the fact people keep coming, right? Like that is an external validation that helps me to realize, okay, no, I am creating value and that's good. And that feels better. It
Yeah.
took me
We
45 years to get
You
there.
certainly don't need me to tell you how valuable you are, but there's plenty of people I could have chosen to spend an hour with today talking about this stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is amazing. So we're gonna wrap up here. If you had one thing you could whisper into
Ooh,
every leader's ear, what would it be? One
ooh,
truth that you think is important for every leader to know.
for every leader to know. You have a responsibility to stand up for what you believe in, and people are watching, right? In big and little ways, and not this is getting to be a really long whisper, it's kind of
That's
awkward, but,
okay.
we started this conversation about, fears and legacy, and so when I say people are watching, I don't mean in a way if people are watching and judging, I mean in a way and like people are watching and looking to be inspired. Right? Like so often we hear what's so important for the youth growing up is for them to see somebody that looks like them doing great things or to have somebody believe in them. And so when you're in a position of authority, I don't want to use the word power because I think it can, yeah, there are a lot of good and bad meanings behind that. But when you're in a position of either authority, great wealth, or and as a leader, you've got to take that responsibility and you can't take it lightly. And so to step up, do the work on your own self and figure out how you can show up.
I think the great Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man,
Okay.
I think either his uncle or someone said, "With great power comes great responsibility." And I just tell you, there's so much we can learn from the superhero universe.
There you go. There you go. Well, and I say, what do they say? Something about all real women wear capes or something like that. I always tell my daughter, we'll put on that cape and be a superhero.
I love it. I think it's great. Anyway, amazing.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for being here. This has been really great. Is there anything else you wanted to share? First question. I know I
Well, I
keep
wanna
telling you
say
it's the
I
last question.
survived. I survived the fear podcast, so, thank you for digging in. Thank you for doing this work, and I know people who have had the honor of working with you and have shared to me the benefit on themselves and their teams, of having you get in and have these tough conversations and really teach them about how they show up, so I'm honored to be a part of this.
Thank you, Julie. If people want to get in touch with you so they can take advantage of your brilliance in this space, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So our website is jhphilanthropy.com. We've got an email, hello@jhphilanthropy.com. You could reach out to me on LinkedIn also. I will say it is Hoffman with two N's. Julie Hoffman with one N is so tired of hearing from people that are looking for Julie Hoffman with two N's. She no longer forwards the emails. She's a wonderful person. But
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I loved this hour. It was exactly what I was hoping for. And I just appreciate you being here and sharing your
likewise,
thoughts.
I'd love to dig into this a little bit more too. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye bye.